Hey everyone, welcome to this video on is your HR department dysfunctional or proactively connected? So we're still in step 6 of the hyper HR present. So we're going to move into the C, which obviously is connection. So I want to be talking to you about influence factor 8, connection. So where are we going with this one? So I want you really to be thinking about, well, how connected is HR to the rest of the business? That's really where we're headed in this conversation now. So first of all, I want to kind of get you're in the mindset of where is HR? Is HR on the 4th floor, ground floor, in a corner office, in a center office? Where is it? You know, when we think about HR responsibilities, to me, HR is everywhere or it's nowhere. And what I mean by that is that HR is embedded within the leadership responsibilities. Every leader within the business, every manager, supervisor has HR responsibilities. So therefore, HR needs to be everywhere. It can't just be reliant on the HR team. We know leaders have HR responsibilities, and we've got to make sure that the leaders are fully aware of those responsibilities. So it's not a case of, oh, well, I need someone, I need HR. It's almost like HR is only important when we need to hire and fire. No, it's not just about HR in terms of disciplinary and grievances or assisting leaders on board. No, there's a lot more to it than that. And fundamentally, we need to make sure that HR is everywhere and that all the leaders up and down the organization are fully aware of their HR responsibilities. The second point I want to talk about is this: how connected is the HR strategy or what you do in HR to these different strategic objectives? So is it connected to revenue generation? And if it is, how? And revenue generation, if you remember in one of my other videos, we talked about cost avoidance or cost reduction. So getting you guys focused on, are you doing that? Are you contributing to revenue generation? The other point I want to ask you is, when we think about customer experience or customer engagements, how are you now connected to improving the customer experience? What are you doing to do that? It's not just about the internal customer. HR is also about how they deliver for the external customer. The other point we need to be thinking about in terms of strategy is really how we are connected to employee engagement and our standard and processes. So when we think about employee engagement, of course, we know it. Everything we do for employees, we get it. But also, what are we doing to contribute to ensuring that we have the right standards, the right systems and processes in place, and that people are being compliant to them in order to deliver on great customer experiences, which then deliver revenue? So we've got to be thinking about how we're connected to that. The other thing, so explicitly, like this is like fundamentally, like think about it. How are we connected to these business strategies? What are we doing to contribute to the customer experience strategy? What are we doing to financial? What are we doing to operational? So operational systems, processes, how we're aligning what we're doing and connecting what we're doing in HR to these strategies. And these are the questions, we need to answer for ourselves. How do we directly connect? When we think about, how do we recruit and develop and, grow the workforce towards delivering these strategic objectives? How does HR align to the strategy in a way that not only allows the company to compete, but also to win, right? It's not just about competing, it's about winning. So what are we doing in the HR function in order to contribute to these different strategic objectives? So fundamentally, the ultimate question is, and what we need to be able to answer is this: how do we recognize what our organization does best? Do we recognize it? Do we even think about it? Because once you've answered that question, we need to answer this question. So we do recognize what our company does best. So how does our HR function or team contribute to what our organization does best? Because when you answer this question, that's going to determine how much value you're contributing. Because it's helping the organization win, not just the people, but the organization. And that's what I mean. It has to be connected, not just to the employee engagement. It's about those systems, those processes, operational level, and then it goes to the customer experience, and then it goes to obviously revenue. And we're not revenue generating, I get it, unless we're delivering training that's intended for that, but we're definitely cost avoidance and cost reduction. Good. So I then want to talk about the different functions within HR, because again, too often I go into organizations and they're disconnected. And so I think of HR as a wheel. We need to make sure that we're all connected to a wheel so we travel all in the same direction. So what do I mean by that? So basically, if you look at a spoke of a wheel, this is like a HR, this falls under the HR umbrella, I get it, right? But how are they connected? Are they speaking the different departments, or are we still, we've got centers of excellence, we've got shared services, and we don't know what shared services are doing or that center of excellence is doing. We need to make sure they're connected. And what do I mean by that? Look at the recruitment process. The recruitment process has got to start with what's the job description? What's the request? Then you've got to think about how do we attract a person that fits with that job description. So this is before we get into the interview process. So you've got to make sure that we have the right attraction strategy. Don't just go straight into let's interview and select. Two different things. Recruitment process, how we interview and select, and attraction, two different things. All right, then we need to think about how do we onboard them. And that's that whole 90-day, how do we make them feel integrated into the company? How do we evaluate? How do we let them know how they're performing in their job? Do we give them any training and development? And how is training and development linked to career progression? And how is career progression linked in with the succession plan? And then obviously the pay and the bonuses linked in with as people progress through the organization. Make sense? So we've got to have that. Another way of looking at this is what I've put together, what I'm calling the 7 spotlights to the employee experience, because engagement and satisfaction is no longer. Remember, I just said earlier, attraction and interest. You've got to be able to attract and gain their interest. You've got to get their foot in the door before you interview and select them. That's a whole different process. So recruitment process is not necessarily how you attract them. We've got to be thinking about that. Then once we get onto how do we onboard them and integrate them, but we've also thinking about how do we now need to engage and inspire them, which is different to how we need to evaluate and recognize them. And then, when it comes to promotion and development, we need to be mindful of what we're doing in that area and how we're doing that. And then finally, how do we exit and retire? Ideally, what we want to have is what we call boomerang employees, which kind of leave because they think the grass is greener on the other side. Get it? You still got to mow the grass, right? On the other side. So we want to, when they come back, they generally are more loyal and they are more appreciative. So, also it sends volumes into the market, how we let how we let people go. So we need to be mindful of how we retire and exit people. So connection. So what do I want you to be kind of thinking about is how is your HR strategy connected and aligned to the business strategy? How is it connected to the various functions? You've got to. Succession planning must be speaking to recruitment. Training and development must be speaking to succession planning. Pay and rewards, your D&I strategy, all of that has to be in communication. This whole idea of shared services, I get it works in some organizations, as long as they're speaking to one another. Same thing goes with centers of excellence. It works when you communicate and you connect. You are fundamentally connected. And then being able to answer those HR questions, that's another thing. So in our next video, and it's going to be the last video, which is all around energizing your HR leadership. So we're going to be talking about energy and what energy you're bringing to the table. So hopefully you found some golden nuggets and some takeaways in this last video around connection and making sure we are a connected HR function. And I'll see you on the next video. Take care for now.